In a chaotic win against the Columbus Blue Jackets, Marc-Andre Fleury tied Patrick Waugh for wins in NHL history by a goalie. So when will he pass Patrick Waugh? Plus, the Wall has been recalled to St. Paul. We'll talk about when we could see Jesper Wallstedt in action for the Minnesota Wild. We'll talk about the impact of Mats Zuccarello back in the lineup. That and a bunch more to get to on today's episode of Locked On Wild. We are your team every day.
You're Locked On Wild. Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, this is Brandon Duham, and this is Locked On Wild.
What is happening, Wild fans? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild. We are your team every day and your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we recap a pretty chaotic win over the Columbus Blue Jackets over the weekend. We'll talk about the history that Marc-Andre Fleury made, as well as some history that could be made this week, too. We'll look ahead to a busy week for the Minnesota Wild with 4 games on the schedule. My name is Seth Topal, your daily Minnesota Wild insider, credentialed member of the Minnesota Wild media landscape, and today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. We are joined, as always, here for a Monday episode by Alex Micheletti, and it is, once again, a Victory Micheletti Monday. Alex, I am hoping that you can once again carry the load here, but because as people can hear, still dealing with the crud, and we'll continue to just work it out of my system. But chaotically fun win for the Wild against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Cole Sillinger had a hat trick. Matt Boldy had 2 goals. And Marc-Andre Fleury just had one of those moments that have marked his Minnesota Wild tenure as he gets caught between the bench and the crease, flies back onto the ice to try to prevent an empty net goal, and the Wild go down and tie it and help him get his 551st win in the process.
Yeah, for a while there, it was just the Matt Boldy, Cole Sillinger show, and just chaos was was at the end there. And thank goodness to snap that 4-game losing streak. I couldn't imagine losing to Columbus and then having to come in to face Dallas after that. That would have been extremely tough. And so yeah, just so happy for Marc-Andre Fleury, and thinking this, Marco Rossi was able to score after he made that incredible save in overtime too. Amazing.
It was just a fun game back and forth. And, another fun angle to it was being able to get that win against his old coach in Cape Breton, Pascal Vincent, who's the coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets. So obviously those guys have some history from way back in the day. And
when he was a teenager, which is crazy to think.
Ages ago. Well, not as long as Brandon Duham may suggest, but it was super fun to see just the team reaction to the win for Fleury. And, the fact that they said upon review, the shot that he came back in to block ended up missing the net, so it wouldn't have been a true empty netter. Hopefully would have missed, right? But I just add it to the list of things that have happened since Fleury came here, and obviously the all-timer is going to be wanting to fight Jordan Binnington, but there some of the other moments that I've enjoyed, like in a very funny manner since Fleury came here, was, I forget which game it was, but do you remember when he he was going to make a save and he tucked into the crease and he like jumped up in the air to try to keep the puck from getting in the corner. And I remember that save in particular getting a huge amount of reaction. Like, what's going on here? And it of course worked. I mean, you have the tripping Connor Bedard in the shootout in the preseason. You have it was against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think it must have been last year where he came just flying out of the crease to play a puck to prevent a breakaway opportunity. And, those are the things with all of the competitiveness and the winning pedigree that Fleury brings. He also brings just that I'm going to approach this as if like a 5-year-old was playing in the net. And I mean that in the brightest, like the most compliment sense I can, because he still has that energy and enthusiasm that he did when he first came into the league. And I think that's a large part as to why he's been able to last as long as he has, because he still has that same spark, that same energy that he did when he first came into the league with the Penguins.
Yeah, he's a special player. That's, the guys are in awe of him, especially the young guys. You hear him talk that they watched him when they were growing up play, which is crazy to think about. But he has such a passion for the game too. And when he was talking to Kevin Gorg after the game too, he just said he's more happy that he was able to get the win instead of just the record's nice, but just getting a win with the boys was huge. And so you can tell that he doesn't really want to ever really retire. At some point, father time comes for everybody, but he's enjoying it, and it's special that a player like him is in the Wild organization, because not many like him come around too often. So it's something that all fans should cherish for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. And I've tried to kind of change my tune, or to get my tune to that level of, yes, it would be nice to maybe have won a game more here or there under Fleury's watch. But just the fact that we're getting the opportunity to see a guy who has been one of the best goalies in the NHL for a long time, the fact that we're getting to see him do his thing, and that he has become just a beloved member of this team since he's been here, I think that's a huge part of it, a fun part of it as well. And I think it speaks to, and yes, some of this is just where he's at in his career, but the fact that he doesn't want to leave. If with this team not really in a postseason spot right now, they're fighting to try to get back in. Obviously, the talk is starting to push towards what are they going to do at the deadline. And there would be teams out there with goalie injuries that would probably be looking for somebody of Fleury's caliber. But I think the fact that he doesn't want to go is probably telling a little bit of kind of his thoughts of playing in Minnesota here at this point.
Yeah, he has a young family, so he doesn't want to pick up everything and move them again. And he's won his cups, so it's not like he's chasing a ring. So he knows that in the back of his mind. And like he mentioned in a previous interview, where else are you to get in a job where thousands of people are screaming your name?
Right.
Nowhere else. So why not keep playing the kids game as we mentioned earlier as well. So yeah, it's just special. It's awesome, when he can get a win like that too. Just absolutely electric. That was the perfect Marc-Andre Fleury game, if you could ever think of one. That save he made in overtime where he slid over.
Yeah.
It's incredible that a guy at his age it can stretch like that. Not many can, for sure.
Yeah, and he just keeps bouncing up. Like, you just think at some point, oh boy, like some of these saves he's making are just crazy, and he pops up every time like it's nothing. So huge tip of the cap to Marc-Andre Fleury, and the next win is going to be the one that pushes him into second on the list. And so That could come this week with 2 games against Dallas, a game against Philadelphia, and a game against Arizona as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope that it would happen tonight against the Dallas Stars, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Now we have kind of the changing of the guard, so to speak, because the Minnesota Wild made another goalie move over the weekend as Jesper Wallstedt getting the call to St. Paul. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the interesting dynamic between the two goalies here as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Game Time. If you are looking for some last-minute tickets, Game Time is the place to go. You probably have run into in your quest to buy tickets for the Minnesota Wild or some other team the day of. Either tickets are too expensive or you don't have a good idea of what you're going to see from your particular seat. Game Time can erase all of that same-day ticket buying stress. They offer last-minute deals on tickets, plus they give you a view of every seat in the arena, so you can check out what you're going to see from your seat before you even buy it. Game Time is here to take all the hassle out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure to join us after the game tonight for a Locked on Wild postcast. I'll be slinging tea either in the booth at home or at home, depending on the weather, depending also on this. We'll have you covered after the game, no matter what, here at Locked on Wild. So make sure to tune in and join us as the Wild take on the Stars here this evening. Speaking of the Minnesota Wild, they made a fairly notable roster move, Alex, over the weekend as Jesper Wallstedt was recalled from Iowa. Zane McIntyre sent back down. And I think the Wild's using an opportunity here to try to get Wallstedt into a game because Fleury has played in 5 straight. And it's interesting because in an episode that you'll hear later today with Locked on Stars host Joey Erickson, Scott Wedgwood has played in 11 straight games for the Dallas Stars heading into this home and home. And so both teams looking a little bit at their goalie situation and trying not to get their guys run down. We could see backup in this home and home, and that would mean that Jesper Wallstedt would get his first start of his NHL career against the Dallas Stars, which kind of scares me, but hey, if anybody's ready for it, it's Wallstedt. And I know he's coming off of an injury, but somebody that just oozes confidence and somebody who's dominated at the AHL level. So the Wild, I guess, going with the guy that they feel gives them the best opportunity to win if Marc-Andre Fleury is not able to make all 4 starts this week.
Yeah, you have to give Fleury a breather. So, yeah, see what the kid has, and sometimes, you have one of 2 outcomes. Either, he gives up 5 or 6, or it's a shutout. Sometimes, there's not a whole lot of tape, and so obviously with him making his NHL debut, there wouldn't be any, and so some of these guys, wouldn't be familiar with his style, and you can catch guys off guard. So yeah, it could go one of 2 ways, but he's going to have to play up here eventually. So might as well see what he has.
Well, my thought here too is this, because let's say later on in the season, Philip Gustafsson gets dinged up or Marc-Andre Fleury gets dinged up and they're going to miss maybe 1 start.
Right.
You don't have a need to bring up anybody to play at that point. Like, you're going to call up Zane McIntyre, he's going to be the backup, and you're going to get through it, and that's going to be it. So if you want an opportunity to give Wallstedt maybe 1 or 2 starts over the next week or so, and it sounds like Gustafsson's progressing in getting over his injury. If you want the opportunity to give Wallstedt a start and see where he's at, this is the only time you're probably going to have the opportunity to do it.
Right.
And furthermore, I think you kind of know what you have with Zane McIntyre. He's a journeyman goalie, and you just don't have that rookie upside that you get with these young goalies. And like you said, it'll either be that there are a bunch of goals let in and people will get concerned, or he maybe has the opportunity to steal you a game against a very talented either Dallas or honestly probably Arizona too. Those would be the 2 games I'd look at as most likely for him to start this week.
Yeah, 100%. I was gonna mention Arizona. They just because they are in a tailspin kind of. So that
at least
that would
somebody
be,
is.
Yeah. So that would be the team that might be the best to go against. But if it has to be earlier in the week, you have to get them in eventually. So let's see what the kid has.
Yeah, and so now this week is going to be spent following the following things: 552 watch for Marc-Andre Fleury and first career NHL start for Jesper Wallstedt. Like, those are the only 2 goalie things that matter for the Minnesota Wild this week, because it's likely that hopefully both will happen this week.
Right.
One of them will for sure, because you're not going to start Fleury in both ends of a back-to-back. And so Philly, a team that is kind of up and down. They've been hitting down again, but they're still in 3rd place in the Metropolitan Division. They're 4-3-3 in their last 10. So maybe there, or the Arizona Coyotes, who, as you said, have lost 3 in a row. I don't know if there's a plus to either one, but one of them will happen.
Yes, 100%. Philly, they're a weird team. They do have one superstar, I think, in Travis Konechny. He's a guy that has always been like the perfect fit to be on the Wild, but they never decided to trade him, even when they weren't making the playoffs and had Chuck Fletcher doing trades off apps. So that was all time.
Forgot all about that.
Yeah. So
it seems like something that should be fake, but
no,
it definitely wasn't, because
real.
he admitted it himself.
Right, in a town hall with season ticket holders. You can't make that up. So, and it's the games against Torts are always entertaining. You remember the last game? There was someone brought in the ventriloquist dummy. It was right behind him, behind the bench. Oh man, the Philly faithful is it was an all time as well, and he's always got something crazy to say. So, and they have Nick Seeler and Delorier on that team too. So I'm sure there will be a fight. So be prepared.
There will probably be several. Right. Which is why Adam Raska is on the team. And I wanted to ask you about him a little bit before we flip to our final segment, in which we'll talk about the return of Matt Zuccarello to the lineup. Anytime you can get Kevin Gorg to really laugh at a quote, and we've seen this twice now. Connor Dewar fighting a shark, and Adam Raska now, when Gorg was saying, Columbus is a team that brings some physicality, and so how do you feel about you guys being able to match that? And Raska's like, oh, we will. Don't worry. We'll be able to take care of that. And honestly, I just was kind of excited to see what he would bring to the table, and he got 6 minutes in the game, and ended up being able to levy a hit. So I would say that's probably a solid start. But you got to keep in mind too, he is a 22-year-old,
Right.
and is a guy who has kind of made his career so far through like the AHL as a scrapper. He had 61 penalty minutes so far this season and 1 goal. So if you are looking for somebody to match up with Brandon Duhaime, who will drop him anytime, or Connor Dewar, that's not a bad name to throw into the mix. And I know it came at the expense of Sammy Walker being sent back down, but reality of the situation is that those roster spots that need filling right now are probably more needed in the bottom 6 than they are in the top.
Yeah, clearly Sammy Walker is not a 4th line guy in the NHL. We've seen it a couple times now, and they didn't want him, up here for that. So you get a guy like Adam up who is more suited for that role, clearly based on his stats in the AHL. And he gets an opportunity. He was in the Kalen Addison trade, so that's one that you're like, oh, okay, all right. How is he in the trade? But they clearly watched him in the AHL, and they saw what quote unquote skill set is, and that is to be a guy that is a pain in the butt to play against, and can have a little mean streak if needed, and that is still a part of the NHL game because. As we know, with Kirill getting hurt, it seems like players are going to have to police the game themselves, and that's why Adam is on the roster right now.
You are correct, sir, because the NHL's not gonna.
No,
they're not going to take matters.
Spin the wheel on the Department of Player Safety, or no wheel at all.
Spin the wheel. Mail a $5 bill to the Department of probably something, which is that's what I'm going to refer to them as until they actually do something to meaningfully address what is going on in the NHL. Because this is a system that you've put in place, is that injuries happen on the ice, teams respond, and then the teams that get responded to respond to the response, and that just is the cycle in endless loop. In perpetuity.
Yeah, it's going to happen with the Wild in Winnipeg in February. Just be prepared. There's going to be more chaos with those teams.
Yeah, let's not forget that there is a little bit of bad blood between Dallas and Minnesota that we'll probably see reopened.
We even saw in the preseason too. It didn't postseason, preseason, and it doesn't matter who the head coach is too. I'm sure Pete DeBoer will poke the bear, so he knows how to get under the Wild skin too.
Yeah,
so.
He does. He might get a little bit of a different response from John Hines than he did from Dean Evison. I think Hines already was quoted as saying that Dallas is a heated rival of the Minnesota Wild. So he knows what he's stepping into, and we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the light workload that Mats Zuccarello got in his return to the lineup. Hint, it was not a light workload. So we'll talk about that as we finish today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL postseason is set to begin this weekend, and there is still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is incredibly easy to use with a wide variety of ways to bet, such as live same-game parlays. If you are one of those second period under enthusiasts, this is where things come in for you. You can make any bets live during your favorite games. You can also find particular bets in the Explore tab, and you can put together an unbeatable parlay with all of the NFL postseason action in the Parlay Hub. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. One final segment of today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. We thank you for subscribing to the channel and joining the YouTube conversation, hopping in with the likes of Denny, Travis, Mike, you name it, any of those that are frequenters of our comment section. We sincerely appreciate it. For turning the Locked on Wild YouTube comments into some of the best in the entire channel. It's all because of viewers and listeners like you. So we thank you for it a ton. And Matt Zuccarello thanks you for it as well. Alex, in his return to the lineup, and I read, Zuccarello finished the game with 24 minutes, 15 seconds of ice time. He had an assist, was a +1. He had 7 shots. And this was something that I keyed in on before the game, was going to talk about in the postcast before I was laid up with this. Zuccarello, I thought, provided exactly what the Wild have desperately needed, is somebody who can come in and be one of those leaders in the top 6, because that game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, like, you had Matt Boldy, you had Marcus Johansson, you had Marco Rossi, all just looking around for somebody to step up and take the lead. And Matt Zuccarello able to step in and to show everybody the way. And he was a huge part of why the Wild were able to beat the Blue Jackets.
The pass he made to Matt Boldy was phenomenal on the power play. His vision is just it's the best on the team, and he leads by example and is starting to shoot the puck more too, which is great to see. And he was just sorely missed out there. And we found out against Vancouver in that shootout, he shot and scored with a broken arm or bone in his arm. So that shows you how much he cares and wants this team to win. And he was going to try to play that next night with a broken bone in his arm, but they told him he couldn't play, so that's how much the game means to him. And it's just he's another one of those when he retires, a guy that that you will look back and appreciate that you got to cover or watch him as a fan too.
Yeah, most definitely. And, to even add a little further to the Zuccarello wrinkle, he broke the bone in the first period, or 4 minutes into the second period, as that Russo was trying to kind of track it. And I think he said it was somewhere around the 4:28 mark of the second period. He played the rest of the game. He had the shootout winner. Tried to play against Pittsburgh, but his arm just could not do it. And so turns out for some of the suggestions of like, I didn't see anything wrong, and all of a sudden he just is on injured reserve with an upper body injury. It's like, oh yeah, that would definitely qualify. And so you get that performance, you get another Brock Faber performance. Listen to these numbers against the Blue Jackets. Faber played 30 minutes, 12 seconds of ice time. I guess all it takes is Spurgeon and Brodin being out of the lineup for him to play 30 minutes. Like, that's just the guarantee there.
Right.
So he had 3 assists. He blocked 5 shots, and he had 2 takeaways. He played 5 minutes on the power play, a power play which scored twice, by the way. And he also played 4 minutes on the penalty kill because John Merrill was called for 3 different penalties during the course of the game. And I'll be honest, the first penalty that Merrill took, the boarding call, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
But the others,
especially the last one that was almost a game ruiner, but Marcus Johansson to the rescue.
Yeah, after the Fleury Superman slide in from the bench. But not only that, you had Boldy with the 2 goals. He stepped up and really made his presence felt after a real quiet game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Johansson scoring, as you mentioned, he had 4 shots in just under 18 minutes. So let's keep that going.
Yeah.
And then Marco Rossi scoring the OT winner. John Hines putting Marco Rossi, Brock Faber, Matt Boldy out on the ice in OT.
It's cinema. Yeah, it's awesome.
Just it's art. Hang it in the Louvre.
Right.
Like we gotta start getting some Wild related things up to the Louvre. I don't know why, but I think probably just because I like to do that bit on Twitter. So,
right. It's great.
Yeah, let's hang some things in the Louvre. Before we go, just one more thing. So 4 games this week. Dallas, Philly, Arizona. What do we think for a record in these 4? Honestly, I would love to see a point in one of the 2 Dallas games.
Right.
And I could care less what happens to Philadelphia because they're an Eastern Conference team. You got to beat Arizona. Let's say, I'll say 1-2-1 this week.
Yeah, I'm with you too. If you get to 500, if you get 2-2, that's a home run. I think, I think they can. For whatever reason, Dallas is a horrible matchup for the Wild.
Yes, it is.
But not having Ottinger is just a huge. And having Wedgwood or backup. Funny enough, I believe the third goalie or backup right now is still Matt Murray. Which is the other Matt Murray. And I think they can beat Philly, and I think they can beat Arizona. So they'll, and then, like you said, if you can get a point out of the Dallas games, hallelujah. But the later in the week, I think you can beat those teams. They have more talent than both of them. It's just a matter of, guys like Marcus Johansson and Matt Boldy showing up. That's your difference right there. You either have a Columbus game or a Tampa, and you want the Columbus-like game.
Yes, you do. Leaders got to lead. Third pairing defensemen got to stay out of the penalty box. That's the key to victory.
If one of your responsibilities is to be on that said penalty kill, John Merrill, you can't be the one taking the penalty. One of your your 11 minutes. Part of your duty is to not take penalties because you're on the penalty kill. You can't be taking 3 of them.
Like if we could simply just stay out of the penalty box, this will just magically evaporate out of my system. Like the more penalties that are taken, the more of a physical toll it takes on my soul. So let's stop going to the box. That's all I'm going to say about that, and we'll just get this S bleep out of my system.
Yeah,
I'm ready to move on as the Minnesota Wild are. So reminder, we've got a special pregame crossover episode coming up for you later today. Joey Erickson of Locked On Stars stopped by to tell us a little more about the Dallas Stars, who have lost 3 in a row, by the way. So we'll see what happens there. But Alex, thanks for joining us. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. And we will see you on the flip side. But one thing before we go.
I would like to shout out to Denny. Denny, we really appreciate you. You are one of the most loyal listeners. We heard that you are battling cancer right now, and you said over the weekend that it was in remission, and so we're thinking of you. Thank you for all the support. It truly means a lot, and we know you're a strong, tough guy, and you'll get through it.
Locked on Wild Strong. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be back with you with a new episode, whether I sound like this or much better. Make sure to tune in. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.